bonjour. Oh, bonjour. Okay, what I want to tell you first is that we as water walkers have been walking for a number of years, and we also predicted the Flint dirty water and that it was coming to Detroit, and no one would listen to us. We're in the Detroit River today and tomorrow, and some people are in the canoes and some of us are walking. So a water walk is not a protest or an act, it's not an angry thing. We're doing a peaceful walk and praying for the water as we go. In a place, it's not a place to boast about, or it's not for talking or gossiping to people, for thrill seekers, and it's not a contest or a competition, exercise or a workout, or a game of I can handle it. For those that just show up at the end of the walk to be seen and to say they were there. Because we as grandmothers have been working for a very long time, almost half a century for myself, more than that. And for others, who's leading the walk right now is Josephine Mandan. And we're going to pull up our canoes at 5 o'clock. They must be pulling them up really shortly. And we're going to be on the Detroit River tomorrow, then we'll be going to Amherstburg. So I want to do this opening to talk about the sacredness of the water. And I looked at some signs as I was coming in, and it said, don't fight, against the poor. And that we must come together as a people. Well, we as Native Americans, and I want to welcome you to my traditional homeland here, the Great Lakes area, and that we have been here since time immemorial. We didn't come from any place else. We were always here. And the scientists tried to fool all of us. And we have to come together as people, all 4 races in the world. Because it's not just a Michigan thing, it's not just the water. It's about our universal coming together as a people. We have to learn how to conserve energy, we have to learn how to conserve water. And we have to remember that we're human beings first of all, and that water should not be for sale. We need clean water. Water is a human right. We need to do what has been done in some parts of Central America and in India, and make water a human right, because we don't have that here. And we need to stop buying plastic bottles. When we are walking for the water, we are in an Anishinaabe ceremony, and that's who we are from this land. Since time immemorial, is Anishinaabe. We move like the water, continuously all day long, every day until we reach our destination. We carry tobacco with us, and we offer our prayers to any flowing streams, rivers, or any waters that we cross. Any animals that are laying on the side of the road that were hit by an automobile because somebody was not cautious, because all life is very important. The animals were here before we were here, and we must keep that in mind. We must bring our minds together as one so that we can bring the beaver back to the Great Lakes area. That would make a big difference in cleaning our water, because they know how to clean the water. Obviously we don't. We've spent millions and millions and billions of dollars trying to, use all these new age things to clean the water. And it's very simple. Bring the beaver back. When we walk, it's time to pray, and it's time to sing songs for the water and for the land, because it is the land and the water that sustain us. And I want to apologize to my ancestors for speaking English. So now I'm going to do the opening for this meeting for this next 3 or 4 days. I know people are tired, and I'm happy that you're tired, because we're not here to play around, we're here to work. This is the language, the Anishinaabe language that's indigenous to the Great Lakes area. Abojul minwamishum sananik minwanuk misnanik, gahwani dashnakals kukulen. Chimigweshki minyang dishwandan wewen wishkozion. Chimigweshki minyang dishwandan nabi, wewen wishkozion. This very precious water that every living organism in the universe needs to live. Chimigweshem nadugi minyang dishwandan wewen minwamanda bwakawen. Wewen wishkozion, wewen wipmaseyon, ganin wemapi nishnabe amikan. Dajwen mangil benunjia, wewen wishkozawat, wewen wipmasewat. Minwa wedding we wawat, kinakunage. That we look at life in a positive way. We might be going through a very difficult time at this time, but that's all right. We need to go through this because we need to come together. We always have lines and spaces, you know, like you can walk here or you can go there, and that's not right because we are all human beings, and if we intend to work for the natural resources, we must bring ourselves to that frame of mind. Chimigwechem nerugi minyang deshmanda wasio. Chimigwechki minyang deshio wawena we wisnion for those animals who give themselves to the plant life, and to everything in the universe. And we give a thanksgiving for those who think that they're above saying thank you. And we give a thanksgiving on behalf of those who thought they were too rich to say thank you, or became too poor at the hands of other human beings. And that we have to remember those cultural appropriation, those people that are in Flint right now that are saying that it's called promise, Camp Promise. We need to stop that right away because all they're doing is lining their pockets and causing havoc amongst people of color in all nations of the world. Chimigweshem nugi minyang sa kinamanage guat temple mampi da we majinyang mampi ditwa. Optional wish and Rosa Park Gi Shkosa, Gi Nanigwa, Josephine Madame, Betty Pan, Patricia Shona, Lila Campbell, Kinawanagi Nuki Wapampi, Woody Gi Nani Buo, Gi Gigdabu, Chimigwet Shamadu, Chimigwet Shamadu, Chimigwet Shamadu, Nicole. Peace be with you.
Thank you, thank you. And we need strong leaders out here to fight for the next generation. We need to begin to start organizing and training these young people what it means to be out here and how to make sure that if we're going to have some jobs in those factories or whatever, we want some strong workers in there fighting for the next generation. I want to bring to you a young lady that we do have respect for. Yeah, see, I'm taller than all of them. And one of the young ladies that's made it to be on the international executive board of the UAW. And I know it's wrong, but we appreciate her and her brothers and sisters that have stuck by with their rights, stuck by the people's what have all of us out here. sunny Estrada.
I just want to, I'm just going to take a few minutes and really just bring greetings from the UAW. One of the things that we've been working on in the UAW is make sure that we're part of this fight in a deeper way at a grassroots level. So over the last couple of months, and we've been involved in water, but not as, Marian always gives me way too much credit because I often go back home and after a long day and think about what have I given to this struggle and not enough. And I think that's a question that I want to challenge our membership and challenge each other. Are we given enough? I know personally myself, I'm not given enough. And so I've recommitted myself to this struggle, working together with my staff, working together with the regional directors, Rory Gamble from Region 1, Chuck Hall, or 1A from Chuck Hall from Region 1, and our other Vice President, Jimmy Suttles, and the entire executive board. How is it that we can get even deeper involved to make sure that we're in the grassroots fight, to make sure that everyone knows and is fighting for water as a human right? We know right now that this issue is what is dividing and is going to divide our country even more. It's always something, but one thing that it always has in common is big corporations and the wealthy in this country want to take and privatize everything that we have. And we're not going to stand by and watch that. But we have to do a lot of work in our plants and in our facilities and every place that we represent to help people understand how this issue is being used to divide people. Why, when you work in a plant or a university or a hospital or the state workers or wherever in the country, that water is your issue. Water is all of our issues for our children and our grandchildren, and so that's our commitment. We're working right now with others to make sure that we're going into our membership and helping them understand how deep this issue really is, how it's going to be an issue that's going to be all of our fights, and so many people don't think it's their fight today. And so the commitment that I want to make is how we do that education piece with our membership, and then get those members to turn out at the grassroots level and take on this fight in the same way that they take on their contract fights, and the same way that they take on other fights in their community. So I just am here to say I'm standing with all of you. I want you to continue to challenge me. I feel like you need to challenge me even more, Mir. Okay, and Maureen, right? And so we're here to support, and we want to bring our membership along, and the UAWs is going to work really hard on water affordability and making sure that this is the fight of my generation, this is a fight for our future generations, and with having two 14-year-old boys at home, this is going to be their fight. And so how is it that we can all step up and when we're tired, just continue to, but first educate, because people don't get it. And it's so easy to let this issue divide us. And we're just not going to allow that to happen. So I want to wish you a successful conference, and look forward to working alongside all of you with our members, because I'm not anything without our members. So unless I'm able to get them engaged, we're not going to be able to do the work that we want to do, and that's my commitment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are honored to have the UAW as deep partners in this work. And it's important that we're linking these struggles, because you know we've had many difficulties with the labor movement, especially in Michigan. And so these fights are important for us to unify and to make sure that we're coming at them as best we can. I want to make one final other announcement, which is about social media. Because the way that we get out these struggles these days is through our social media accounts. So for those of you that use Facebook and Twitter, I want to share some hashtags with you, so that with your own personal accounts, your group accounts, you can send this out. We want as many people to know what we're doing here over these next few days, and you're going to help be part of our media team. All right, so the first hashtag, it's IGSMW17, and that's short for International Gathering Social Movements Water 17 for 2017. All right, I'm going to give you a second hashtag here. Water is a human right. That one's a little easier. And then the third one, water warriors, because that's what we all are. And for folks who are interested in following this on live stream, you can also share this. It's being put out on Facebook. on the People's Water Board page. So it's facebook.com/People's Water Board. So you don't have to have a Facebook account either. Anyone can go on there and see as it's being filmed. We've got our media team in the back, so thank you all so much for doing this, because it's going to be something that helps us get all this information out over these next few days. And lastly, bathrooms are also on this level, right behind the registration table. Thank you.
She said hashtag, not hash brown.
I knew the peanut gallery would come here. I think Cindy said it that when she hit it, we have to educate. If we don't understand why we out here around this whole water struggle, then how you going to explain it to people and get them wound up to understand that they got to be a part of this fight? And why are they messing with this water, trying to privatize it? It's not for people be saying, like in Highland Park, our water will be back on. Our water hasn't been on since 2013, as far as pumping it from our pumping station. So, you know, rather sit back and try to dream. You say, I'll come back to these folks and go get some other folks that you think going to be pulled into this fight. But we have to dig deeper. Yes. Because our land, then, you know, wherever you live, it's going to dry up. Yes, we not only warned Flint, like you said, we warned everybody in the state of Michigan. So it's up to all of us to become speakers. Speak, I'd say to a lot of mothers, talk like you sometimes have to talk to your children and let folks know the danger of the situation out here. You fathers, talk like you talk to the TV when you're trying to play basketball with some enthusiasm as to if we're going to have a future for water, we want you to be out here. And then when you stand up to the so-called power, let them know that I'm going to be in your face every day if necessary. Every day. Because this water is our water. Our water. We got to keep water safe. And we got to make sure that we own it, the public. Because you got a man in the White House. He's a man. That is moving along shortly to make sure that this water is privatized. And I always challenge people and say, let me see if you can live 3 days without water. So the next person, this is a dynamic panel. Not only are we talking about the question of water, but you know, we have some people on here that have really been affected by this water. But I'm gonna start out with an old friend of mine. We've been in the trenches together for years. And John's gonna start this off speaking about his experience around this whole water situation. But John, we always look at John to be a political leader in the sense that the type of politics that we have been learning for years. I want to introduce to some of you, and some of you might run the other way, because he's going to speak the truth. Brother John Williams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I want to say this, years ago, her husband, he's gone now, General Orduno, and I were arrested. This was maybe 55 years ago. And we were taken into the chambers of Judge Davenport. You may not remember him. And I thought he was just a Tom, really. But he told us, when he took us back in his chambers, he said, look, what you're trying to do, timing is not here. It's not right. It's not the time. And he was correct. But it is now. It is today. And what I'm talking about is, when you talk about water, water in and of itself, basically, there's two significant things about water. One, life purportedly derived through water. And two, it is a major source of water is oxygen. and we need it. It's a necessity as well as a right. But what I want to share with you today, and again I say share, I'm suggesting when we get into the halls and go into whatever it is that we meet and talk about how to do what we're going to do, I want to say that the question of water, like the question of homelessness, unemployment, foreclosures, etc. and so forth, they're not separate entities, but to me, they're international class questions. That's the thing that I want to say. There's such a different understanding of what it is that we're about. And I want to do just a little bit of historical leaps. In Europe, there was colonizations in Europe. That is to say, Spain had Portugal as a colony, had the Dutch. But when they got themselves together, they went across the Mediterranean into Africa. And when they went into Africa and took all those resources, there were two developing classes using colonization, or colonizing and neo in those situations. It was the same thing along the Pacific. And who was that? Pizarro went running into what is known today as Peru and went in there and just destroyed the Incas. In North America, in Mexico, it was Cortez went in, destroying them. And of course, you already know who was over Canada and the United States. It was Britain. So, but one of the most significant things I want to get at is the Atlantic. Because the Atlantic had the Atlantic slave trade and the basis, to some extent, of incipient and rising capitalism at that point in the slave trade. And there would have been some other things that moved quicker, but during that time, coming out of what's called the medieval period, they called it the medieval, actually it was the feudal, the rise of feudal and the beginning of capitalism. And what we had at that point in time essentially was this conception of faith. No scientific thing can go beyond faith. There was a guy, St. Augustine, his position essentially was they were kind of taken over by the countries, seek not to understand in order to believe, but believe in order to understand. You don't need no fact, just believe it. And for many years, as many of you may know, Aristotle's position for years had been until Copernicus and Galileo came along, and then of course there was some struggle over it. I said that to say this, because one of the major things that came about using water was the steam engine. And what did the steam engine do? It developed the industrial worker, and it killed the feudal style of living. But now, under the rise of the industrial worker and the rise of the steam engine, there was another philosophical concept that was roaming through the countryside. And it came from, and many of you know Nietzsche. Nietzsche was at that point, was a Prussian philosopher. And his position essentially was, look, at this time, since the capitalists are coming along, we have what he called the morality of the masters. And the morality of the masters meant that they can do whatever they want to do. And the other one was the morality of the masters, you just follow. So it meant that kings, queens, serfdom, all, and get out the way. Get out the way. And so what we have? The rise of industry, and industry then with that, the mills, coal mines, and of course, water basically was polluted as it is today and started that. But I think one significant thing that's happened now, where we are today, and I think it's, in my estimation, probably the most significant thing since the discovery of fire. And that's where we are with robotics at this point. And in robotics, it has made us trying to survive and those who are trying to maintain profits in a dilemma. So there are three things I wanted to raise before I sit down. And what we're seeing today is we struggle around water, we struggle around fighting for unemployment, homelessness, foreclosure, a whole bunch of things. Not to describe the ideological things that are going on, the LGBT that are trying to do, all these things that are going on that we see. Privatization that she mentioned. Privatization, every time you turn around now, the school, I went to school in Detroit, I don't even recognize some of these schools now. But the privatization for profit, water, railroads, not railroads, but roads, construction, all these things are privatized. Then there's two others, deregulation. And I don't know if you're familiar with what they call preemption. Preemption is a law. And what they essentially mean is that they'll just remove your law. If you have one, get it out the way so we can do it. And it did in Texas, they saw that. There was no problem with the oil and gas companies until fracking came up, and when they did, they moved in and cut it out. You don't have any. And there are many, if you ever get a chance, there's a National Council on Cities, and they put out a report of the various states and cities where all these things are going on. And of course, if you live in this area, you already know, because we got emergency managers. And this emergency management, we've got an oversight committee still looking over, overseeing, taking care of what's going on with you. So my final point essentially is this, ladies and gentlemen. I don't care how poor we get. I don't care how angry we get. I like to suggest to you is that what we understand here. And what is our group? Who is it that we need to unite with? And who is it that's responsible for these things that's happening to us? Who is responsible for it? Because once we identify that target, and they're trying to split us along, in quote, racial lines, gender lines, when it comes to immigration, and right now, it's just, we got to move Russia, we got to move China, all these things that are going on, and if we're not clear on what's happening, we fall right into the hole, you see. So, today, years ago, there's one point, you've heard the struggle, whose side are you on? That's when they were trying to unionize, whose side? Well, today, the objective situation has put the line quite clear. There is a segment of private property owners, and there's the rest of us. So the question becomes, it's not a matter of whose side are you on now, it's what are you going to do about it, and your understanding will help you understand what we have to do. Thank you.
I want to introduce to y'all one of the little fighting women that I've never known. Miss Valerie G.
Can you hear me? All right. It's a real honor to be here and telling my story. It's therapeutic for me, and I appreciate you for listening to it. Early in the morning in July 2014, well, let's start with the beginning. Okay, so 2013 and 2014, we went through what was called the polar vortex winter. So many people in Detroit, had busted pipes, didn't recover from it. The only bill you got paid was that really expensive DTE bill, right? So coming out of this polar vortex winter, immediately campaign for mass water shutoffs start. We got word of it, started in February. By March, it was clear that it was going to be something that we couldn't even comprehend. It was going to be so large. So 40,000 people upwards. They were already shutting off 3,000 people a week. So I knew, my family knew, that we were at jeopardy of having our water shut off. We had had a hard time making our ends meet from the winter. By July, we were in a serious situation. So it was early in the morning. I have 5 kids, so I get up early, meditate, get some coffee. I was up, I was making coffee. I heard something outside my door. It was a little after 6. I looked out the window. I saw a Hamrick truck. Hamrick is the company that was hired to shut off people en masse, and they figured out a very systematic way to do it with 2 guys in a truck. So I grabbed my phone and my camera and rushed outside, knowing I was not going to let them shut my water off. All my kids were there, and I was not going to be able to feed them or anything that day if they shut my water off. So I just rushed in front of my water access point. The gentleman was there with the key. I just stepped over it and said, "You can't shut my water off, call the cops if you want." And in that instant, he just kind of looked at me and put his hands up in the air, set the water key back in his truck, and then proceeded to go across the street to my neighbor's house, and then systematically, in 45 minutes, shut everybody off in a 3-block radius. Yeah. While I was on my water access point, the second he pulled away to my neighbor's house, I made a phone call, and I made a Facebook post. I had my phone with me. The Facebook post was, "Hamrick is shutting off my whole neighborhood from water, and we need help." And then the first phone call that I made to a gentleman by the name of Mike Shane, and he immediately got me got me to Maureen Taylor with Michigan Welfare Rights. Unbeknownst to me, that she made a call that moment and got me a 30-day stay on my water shutoff. Didn't even know that until later that day. So, sitting there, it was really early in the morning. We immediately, with that Facebook post that I made, people started coming immediately. Within an hour, I had 100 gallons of water on my front yard in a makeshift water station. People were coming from everywhere because we needed to go knock on my neighbors' doors and let them know that everybody had been shut off. As we were knocking on their doors, they were so confused that so many people had been shut off. There was a real sense of trauma and despair, like they're gonna come in and shut off our whole neighborhood. So there was immediate outreach from all kinds of different organizations. We set up the water station. It took, within about 3 days, we were mad as hell. I mean, people were calling the water department. They were unable to make arrangements. And there were so many of us, it was just a really traumatic, horrible situation. So we decided to organize a mass march through the neighborhood where we'd start at Woodward, we'd walk through the whole neighborhood, we'd gather folks. About 300 people showed up about 5 days later at the corner, and we marched through my neighborhood, and they very intentionally, all of us, shut down Woodward. At a time of day where Woodward is the main vein of the city. People are going home from downtown, across 8 Mile. They've been working all day. It was the main time for that to happen. We shut down Woodward and we marched down Woodward for about a mile, and we had a huge community dinner. It was there at that community dinner where we first started talking about what was going to be like to actually respond to a crisis like this, and how we were going to come together and respond to it and never let it happen again. Unfortunately, we're 3 years in. So all of us and in my neighborhood they put these blue lines over your water access point. And about the second day in, we started spray painting those blue lines because that's how Hamrick would find the people to shut them off. We did creative things and put little gardens over them and just made it as difficult as possible. It took about 2 weeks for everybody to get their water turned back on, and it was a lot of fighting. My neighbor almost died, my 86-year-old neighbor. She never recovered from it, and she died this year. And her story is very unique. She's in the movie. If you watch it, Detroit Minds Dying, you can go to DetroitMindsDying.org to see it. It's really important. It tells our story. So the resistance, this citywide resistance that happened, we shut down Hamrick's space so they couldn't move any trucks. The Hamrick 9, they're still going through legal battles with that, and they got a terrible story. Hopefully we'll get to hear it. So the people who shut down that, Hamrick wasn't able to shut off 400 people that day. It was a very successful action, and it showed a lot on whose side the city's on. We also got a 15-day moratorium, which was really, really exciting. We weren't. Although we're all really pretty sure that they never stopped, we still got calls from the water hotline that people were getting shut off. And so they gave us a 15-day moratorium, which was exciting, but they didn't really follow through with it. Immediately after that, the mass water shutoffs started right back up. Whole neighborhoods were being shut off at a time. It was their practice. It was cheap for Hamrick to send 2 guys in a truck. That's how they did it. So here we are now. We're 3 years later. We've got researchers from Henry Ford Health System that's released a report that shows the connections between the mass water shutoffs and waterborne illnesses in those areas. And it was very, very important. We, the people of Detroit, helped do that research, and they also did a book. They made a book and did a lot of research called Mapping the Water Crisis. It's a really, really important book that tells our story in a very unique way with all of the numbers. If you get a chance to get one while you're here, please do, and support We the People of Detroit. So the mental health problems in my neighborhood and for children and for people who who got their water shut off and got to turn back on, but you don't just bounce back from it. It's very traumatic. You go through horrific amounts of shame. And if you're an elderly person that can't carry that bucket upstairs to flush your toilet, it's a whole different level of shame that people have to endure. Now you have to realize that a lot of people got totally displaced. If you don't have water in your house, you're getting totally displaced. So right now we have people buying up huge squatches of land because so many people were displaced. That's intentional. That's intentional from, and that's part of this system. Now we can see that, right, Hammer got $12 million to do the shutoffs. They got to think about how many people that could help, but that shows you which side they're on, right? Right, and what their priorities are, and they're always going to put profit first. We can all see very clearly with our eyes we're at the end of capitalism. It's exploding. The millennials are like, I'm not shopping. All of these things, we can see that happening, but the capitalists are running around trying to figure out how they can create something for themselves. They think that they've got a handle on creating this new system, right? We're here today to make sure we're the ones creating that. We can't put that job in their hands at all. So how we take the power, we've got to organize today on a global level. That's why these things are so important. Hopefully everybody walks away today with a place in this movement to organize and fight together. Thank you.
You got more energy than all of us. Miss Nicole here.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out to this important event. I mean, it's not just about making changes in the water movement, it's about making changes in the world. I got started in this because I'm a victim of shut-off. I lived with my water shut off for 2 months the first time I was attacked by the water department. The second time I got attacked by the water department, I lived without water for about 3 weeks. What can I say about this? It's not just a fight to me, it's my life. I refuse to sit by and watch capitalist companies like Nestle purchase water from our Great Lakes for virtually nothing when we have people throughout this city and throughout this state and this country that are living without water because it's not affordable. My water got cut off, just to give you a little background into the mismanagement of the water department here in the city of Detroit. I moved into the property where I am now in 2009. According to their laws, you have to file an affidavit within a week of moving into your residence to establish water in your name. And if you've had water previously, to have it disconnected at that address. I did so, and according to them, not myself, clerical errors, I love that word by the way, clerical errors are basically DWSD's excuse for every mistake they make. It's a clerical error. So due to clerical errors, I was being billed at my previous address that I had resided in for probably about 2 years after I moved out of it. I didn't find this out until one day my bills started jumping from maybe $80, $90 to $200, $300 a month. They told me I had leaks. And I said, well, you know, there's no way I have any leaks, but just to be on the safe side, could you have someone come out and check it for me? I'd really appreciate that. So they had someone come out and they told me I had no leaks, yet my bill continued to skyrocket every month till it got eventually to a point where it was maybe around $5,700. Yeah, I bought a car with that. So I took it upon myself to document what was going on. I went to the water department. They couldn't give me any information as to why my bill was that big. As I have been paying on it every month, and it was still increasing. So on May 14, 2014, I got up to get my kids ready for school. Well, the three that I have at home. And I made sure they got to school safely at the end of our block. And I went back and said, well, let me wash the breakfast dishes. Turned on the tap, and nothing came out. And my neighbor was in his yard, because he's always out puddling in the morning. And I went out and I said, is your water off? Because at least twice a year, successfully, every year I've been in my address, and I've been there 10 years now, we have a water main break at either end of our block. And they never let anyone know, oh, we're gonna have to cut the water off while we fix the water main. People just get up and their water's off. So he said, well, no, my water's not off. I said, well, did you see a truck out here? And he said, well, I saw a truck, but it wasn't a water department truck because it was a Hummer truck. So I immediately went in the house, I contacted the water department, and they said, well, yes, your water's been shut off for non-payment. And I said, well, I have been paying you what I can afford to pay you. Which means when someone that's in a impoverished situation tells you they're paying you what they have to pay you, that means they're taking money from other bills to cover that bill. So I immediately went to the Department of Human Services. I had to pick my youngest daughter up from school on the way, who was 7 at the time. We went there and I told the worker, I said, my water's off. And I have children in my home and I really need some help. And she said, well, okay, well, we can pay up to $175 now. Used to be $150, but we give you extra 25 bucks. So she called the water department. She told them that she would do what is called SCR, or state emergency relief. And they told her, well, we can't take $175. That's not gonna do anything. Her bill's $5,000. And she looked at me and the phone literally slid out her hand and she said, do you have a pool in your backyard? Or, what's going on? How's your bill $5,000? Have you not paid a bill the entire time you have been there? And I said, yeah, I do. I pay my bill. I may not pay the full bill, but I pay on the bill. And they told them there was nothing they could do. They wouldn't accept that. And she turned to me with my 7-year-old sitting there. She said, well, that's grounds for removal of your children from your home. Oh. And my daughter burst into tears and ran out of her office. And I just said, well, thank you. And I left and my mind just started turning and I tried to figure out, what am I gonna do? My first thing is that I had to think of was, where was I gonna get my kids to? I had to get them out of this house. So I made arrangements for my 2 daughters to go with a family member and my son to go with a neighbor around the corner who suggested that I start calling the local news agencies, which I did. And gotta love some of our local capitalist news stations as well. I was told by one, well, we can't do anything and we don't see a story here. And I said, well, I'm sure if they're doing it to me, they're doing it to other people. They didn't see a story, but if I get my water turned back on, maybe they could come out and write a story about that. So at that point, I didn't know where to turn, and I just started calling any agency I could think of, and I came across Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. And I spoke to this lovely young lady with the camera in her hand right here, and she's like, there's no way your bill's that high, And she said, well, I'm gonna give me your account number, I'm gonna, check your account. And she called me back and she said, how is your bill this high when between May of 2012 and your shut-off date, you paid them $2,895. And we're gonna do something to get your water back on. And They did. They did. They kept their word. They got my word back on. Even though Ann had to threaten Daryl Latimer himself. I do appreciate you threatening him, even if he wasn't going to get my word back on. But living without water is probably the worst thing I can say I've lived through, and I came up here from Hurricane Katrina to give you just a picture of how bad it is to live without water. Because of that, as Valerie Jean was saying, it doesn't just stop at the fact that your water's been cut off, the trauma continues. My 7-year-old daughter, later on that week, I decided I was gonna stay in my house because I also live in an area where people tend to like to touch things that don't belong to them. So I was up maybe about 1:30 in the morning studying because I'm currently in school, and there's a knock on my door and it's the police. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? And they have my 7-year-old. And she's decided that she didn't want to be where she was. She wanted to get home with her mom, and had taken it upon herself when everyone in the house was asleep to leave the house and walk down a dark Detroit street and come home. And she just happened to ask some random gentleman standing on the street at 1:30 in the morning, gave him her address and said, can you take me home? I want to go home to my mom. And he flagged down a police car. They brought my daughter home, and they had went back and got my elderly aunt that was watching them. And she's looking over my daughter's head going, you know. And he's like, tell your mom what you told us. And she's like, I just want to come home. I want to be at home. And that's one of the hardest things I think a parent has to face when you have to choose to keep your child away from you. And at that point, I had to bring her home because who's to say she wouldn't walk out of the house again and the next time it not go that way? Right. So now I'm in my house with no water and I have my child home, and then the other children are like, well, I'm gonna come home too. And we all live without water. My daughter, who's sitting right here, would ride her bike to neighbors' houses with jugs to get water. And unfortunately, I didn't live in quite the community that Valerie Jean lived in. None of my neighbors offered me any help. And so I struggled through it. And while I was going through it, I decided that if I didn't do anything else in this world, it would be my mission to make sure that no one else went through that. And if it took me falling down in the trenches, I'd get right back up and keep going until I fought till we had water affordability for everyone, not just those who they think deserve it, but water for everyone. So I continue in that fight, and I've learned and met a lot of great men and women that inspire me to keep going, even sometimes when I feel like doing the wrong thing and handling situations a little bit different. I have people that coach me to do the right thing. So I hope that all of you take away from this conference that fight, that instinct, that burn that you get inside of you to keep going, because it's not always about the selfish act. Sometimes it's about the selfless act. Thank you.
I want to present to you a minister that you proud to have someone like him as your minister, Reverend Rowe. And yes, sometimes he's in jail with us too.
Anytime you hang out with Marian, and while you're in jail, General Baker and my wife eat the pizza. Guess we can't blame General Baker anymore. I guess my mantra is I don't live in a bankrupt city. I live in a city attacked by bankrupt systems. Racist systems, systems of economic exploitation. I'm glad we heard from these two people with their personal experience of water shutoffs, and I should tell you that they are heroes of mine, and they're also, Nicole is a preacher. And we're going to get her into ministry one of these minutes and take her to wherever you're in school to seminary, because if you have a pulpit that she can stand in, she will help people understand this water crisis in a way they don't understand it today. Okay? Amen? Amen. So she mentioned affordable water, because people are paying what they can and it's not being accepted. If we don't end up with an affordable water plan at the end of the day, we haven't done anything.
That's right.
Charity is not going to do anything about this, and the insane thing that's going on with our mayor, who is just an emergency manager, only with the title of mayor, what's going on with him is he believes that asking people who have no money to pay bills they cannot pay, and then ask them to pay some of the arrearage, 10% or whatever, of what they already cannot pay on top of that is fiscal lunacy. It's not just immoral. It's not just immoral because of what it does to people like these two women. It's fiscal lunacy. You cannot get blood out of a turnip, my mother used to say, and you can't talk about people who deindustrialization and robotics has stolen their jobs. The training is a joke, and they are struggling just to stay alive. And as Cindy Estrada asked the mayor, when you find out that somebody can pay their water bill if you put enough pressure on them, how many months can they do that? Is it sustainable? And what is it that they're not paying in order to pay for the 3 months they can pay until all of a sudden their rent is overdue? And by the way, I believe that the agenda is to drive the poor out of Detroit. I believe that the agenda is to take the water bill I can't pay and put it on my county taxes, so that then I can't pay the county taxes and I get foreclosed. I believe that at the end of the day, the people who ride the queue line and who get subsidized by Quicken Loan and all other institutions in the city of Detroit to live in these $2,500 apartments is the vision of this emergency manager called mayor. So the reason I believe that we will win this struggle, by the way, first I want to tell you about one of the systems. I don't believe that my city has ever been bankrupt. I believe that the systems that oppress it are bankrupt systems of racism and economic exploitation, right? But the reason the systems go something like this. We know that we meet with the health officer of the city of Detroit, and we meet with him for a year, because we know that when you don't have water, not only does the teacher that finds out your son or daughter doesn't have water is supposed to, by law, turn them in to social services, so you're in danger, like Nicole was, of losing your children. We know that you get sick. And so we take the research that we have from We the People, and we go to the person who's supposed to be protecting us, Al-Syed, who's now running for governor. By the way, I hope you don't make the mistake of voting for him, okay? And we meet with him for a year, and he says to us in the first meeting, I think you're right. I think we have a health crisis on our hands, but if I said anything, I would be fired by the mayor tomorrow, okay? And so I'm going to work from the inside, and I want you all to collect information about water shutoffs making people sick, and bring it to me so I can take it to the mayor. This is a little bit like I can find Jesus and take the word back to Herod, kind of scenario, right? And so that's what happens. We spend time, we the people, with the Ford Hospital and some people who put their careers on the line to find out this information, and we find out that you're 1.5 times more likely to end up in their emergency room with communicable diseases that we haven't seen in this town in decades because there is no water. And we take that information and we're about to deliver it to this person who's supposed to be protecting us. He's the health officer for the city of Detroit, and he quits and says he has the mayor's endorsement to run for governor. And we know that that has nothing to do with why he quit. And now, even now that he's not in an office, we haven't heard from him. And he knows that people are getting sick, and it was his responsibility, not only as a doctor, but as a healthcare professional in charge of the health department of the city of Detroit. In the meantime, we have this research, and we have doctors who are ready to speak to this, and maybe the press will pay some attention to the fact that people are getting sick, because there's going to be a Dr. Mona moment in the city of Detroit, right? 22,000 households without water, and 1.5 times more likely to end up in an emergency room. People are sick and people are dying, right? And so all of a sudden, we understand that the health officer of the Wayne County is going to speak, and the former doctor who's in charge of Children's Hospital, Dr. Gray, is going to speak. And Dr. Zonoff, who's in charge of infectious disease at Ford Hospital, is going to speak. And you know, people from the Global Health Initiative are going to speak. And all of a sudden, the mayor picks up the phone and nobody's going to speak. And they pull out of this press conference, "I do not live in a bankrupt city. I live in the city attacked by bankrupt systems." And so a political system that doesn't want anybody to know that people are sick and dying because they don't have water, pick up the phone, and the CEO of Ford Hospital calls its doctors and says, "You can't speak, you can't even go to the press conference." Now I want to tell you, my friend, if you're not afraid now of this emergency manager that we call the mayor, you ought to be. He's willing to sacrifice your health and the health of your children at the expense of trying to collect money from a system you can't collect it from, because the people who don't have the money, the water bill is going to increase about 8% a year. You know, in my co-op, where we can pay our water bill, my monthly maintenance fee went up $30 a month because of the water bills in the city of Detroit. So what is that $30 for some people? It's their food bill. It's stuff that you can't just all of a sudden make up. So I think it's important for us to understand that we have a political system that has made our health expendable and has made the people of the city of Detroit expendable. So I live in a city that is full of strength and is going to win this battle. I don't live in a city that is bankrupt. I live in a city that's attacked by bankrupt systems. I live in a city that's also chock full of gifted, amazing, strong people who do miraculous things for each other in the city amid attacks. Justice-seeking people who refuse to surrender. The strength of Detroit's people is not found in what billionaires can buy and what neighborhood residents can't afford. The strength is in their faith. Faith in each other, faith in our city, faith in our cause of justice, faith in solidarity, faith in what people can do when they organize, faith in diversity, faith in the power of nonviolence, faith in truth, faith that love trumps hate, faith in God that calls us to speak and act together without fear. I live in a city where faith communities create sanctuaries for refugees in danger of being ripped from their homes in the middle of the night. Refugees who escape from the violence to come and find there is violence in the Islamophobia and xenophobia right here in what they thought was the promised land. justice seekers, people committed to environmental justice, working to protect their city from polluters of the air and the water and the soil. I live in a city of justice seekers, people organizing against banks that are making billions of dollars foreclosing on families after being given billions of dollars of tax dollars to help people stay in those homes, and they refuse. Justice-seeking people who lost their jobs to deindustrialization and robotics, and who work 2 or 3 jobs just to make it, and they nevertheless find time to stand with D15 and fight for a living wage for all people and not just for some. I live in a city full of strong people, not a bankrupt city. I live in a city of strong people convinced that we not only shall overcome, but we are already overcoming. As Dr. King said, and we read just a couple months ago from his 1967 speech, there comes a time when silence is betrayal, and this is such a time. These courageous women and many others like them have not been silenced, and for us to be silenced while they're doing the suffering would be an immoral act. We need to stand with them. We need to follow them. This is not a time for me, a privileged person, to be telling people who are oppressed how to run the movement. This is a time for me to stand behind and alongside. This is not a time for me to be taking charge. This is a time for saying to people like Nicole, thank you. What do you want me to do next?
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. How many of you here are from out of town? Can you raise your hand? Boy, a lot of you. Wow. I'm surprised because I see so many familiar faces. Welcome to our beloved community. And you know, the word beloved, when I think about that word, I think about my sister, who is an ancestor now, Charity Hicks. Because when she said that word, you really felt love. And you hear people in our beloved community talk about waging love. Usually when you hear the word waging, you're talking about waging war, which is the opposite of love. We need to pay attention to what's going on around us. And I'm like you, very concerned about number 45. Not my president. It don't represent me. This is not a United States. He don't care about Americans, people. He care about things. He wants you to pledge allegiance to things. A flag, flag is not alive. Since when do things become more important than living creatures? We are in a very important, critical time in our lives right now. Because this is all around the world. The world's eyes is on us right here. This is a spiritual war. Spirit of love versus spirit of greed. And we have to step up. Now, unlike my friends here who told you about their water being shut off, I've not had my personal water shut off, but when they shut their water off, it's just like shutting mine off.
That's right.
And we need to start feeling that way about one another. We gotta get back to what works. Love. How many of you out there remember, like I do, when we had wells to get our water? And that water was so good, I can taste it now. And then somebody come along and say, oh, that's not good enough for you. We need to take the water and clean it and add stuff to it, and now it don't even taste the same. But they tricked us. And now they charging money for it, where people can't even afford to pay for something that is not man-made. We're not talking about fake old pop, soda pop, for some of you people we call pop here in Detroit, but some people call soda pop. You don't need that to live. You need water to live. Inside your body right now is mostly water. It's what keep you alive, in every plant, insect, everything on this earth require water. Water was here before man. So how dare somebody come along and tell me, because you can't afford to pay these high prices, you cannot have water.
Break it up, down. Break it down.
In a minute here, technology. Water should never be a commodity.
That's right.
They got stock markets and all this here stuff, Dow Jones and Wall Street. Water ain't got nothing to do with that. But now, to the people that only think about money, water is the new gold. That's why they coming after our water. Because they know how precious it is. So we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend our neighbors. We have to defend what God put here for us. It's our duty. So I'm deputizing everybody here. Today you deputized. You in the army. You a soldier, but it don't spell the same as they spell soldier. It's an S-O-U-L. Because you got a soul. You got a conscience. I come up in a family that come to this city in the 1920s, when a lot of blacks were coming from down south because of job opportunities. My grandfather built his home. He had third grade education. But were very, very smart. They tell you now, if you only got third grade education, you ain't good enough. Never let nobody tell you you're not good enough. We all got value. They don't get to tell us what our value is. Those people who have taken over the water with power, I was always brought to believe if you have power, you also have a responsibility. Not just to yourself. You say you the mayor of the whole city.
Come on now.
You say you governor of the whole state. You say you're a president, you're president of everybody that live here. They try to divide us, but we cannot let that happen. Now, I just want to say one last thing, because I see my sister standing over me. And sometimes it takes me a little longer to get things out, but it's okay. When you see me, you think about disabilities. Disability don't mean necessarily what you think it is. It just means I need assistance. Might be a person like her, might be some equipment like this chair, but whatever I need, it helped my ability. Yes, I was a member of the Hungry Nine, proud member. They didn't want to charge me, but it's okay, because I'm still coming to court every day. And I just want to say the last thing. I have a very important trial myself coming up. When I got arrested, I was injured because they don't believe in accessibility. They believe in one size fit all. Can you imagine those of you with children out here, if you try to raise all your children the same way? How stupid is that? But we got all these people who call themselves leaders. They don't understand that one size don't fit all. There's a word called equity. That don't mean I need what you need or she need what I need to have access. And if you say you in charge, then act like you in charge. Be responsible to everybody, represent everybody. We gotta hold these people accountable. I'm proud to be working with these organizations, Michigan Welfare Rights, We the People, People's Water Board. There's a lot of grassroots underneath the grass. You can't see us all the time, but we pushing it up, holding it up.
That's all right.
And that's what this is all about. Thank you very much.
All right. So, we are we there yet? Okay, as we're getting these last few technical things together, are there any questions right quick? About 2-3 weeks ago, there was an announcement made that an additional 18,000 names were put on the list targeted for shut-off of water. That's including, or in addition to, the 34,000 to 50,000 who already are either on the list or have been on the list. And I ask this question all the time: who does that? Who turns off water where there are children? Who turns off water where there are disabled people? Who turns off water where there are retirees? Who turns off water where there are veterans? And how are you able to do that without consequences? Well, you know, this struggle that we are involved in, it didn't just show up. There are roots to this thing. You know, we're not talking about people that are bad. We're not talking about Republicans. We're not talking about the Democratic friends. We're talking about something bigger here. Because you have to be an individual that recognizes a huge struggle to come to a conclusion that some folks think it's all right to turn water off. It's just a larger issue. There was a great exodus in the United States of America, 1910, 1920s, 1930s. Ford Motor Company, Henry Ford put out a message. We need a $5 a day work crew to manage something called automobile production. And how can I get that? I can get that by putting this notice in the paper. If you come to where I am, I'll pay you $5 a day, unheard of. And there were people in the Jim Crow South that were ready to go. And these were blacks, and these were Latinos, and these were Native Americans, and these were poor Appalachian whites who wanted $5 a day because they were trying to find a way to change their economic condition when people were so poor, you know, eating handfuls of beans every day. You know, and if you look at your history, you read your history, you can see this country was always about the business of division. And I'm not talking about it as an aspect of that. It's always been about division. The only good Indian is a dead Indian. We got somebody that was in Flint the other day that said the problem with the water in Flint, that these ends won't pay the water bill just like those ends in Detroit. We got something called the Trump Right to Free Speech Marches. And here we are in Michigan, a right to work state. There are roots to these battles and whatnot that we're in, and part of what we want to exemplify and certainly press forward here as a coalition member of the House Water Board. And the reason for calling this gathering together again is to say, listen, we don't have any more time to fool around. Okay? We don't have any more time to fool around. You may not have moved quick enough when you found out that Melissa Mays is losing her hair because it wasn't happening to you. You might not move fast enough when you found out that the Cold Valley had their water turned off because it didn't happen to you. You may not move quick enough when Marian and the folks Linda and them finding out in Highland Park that they hadn't been charged a water bill for water 2 or 3 years, and the bill showed up and said you owe $5,000 and I need it in 30 days. We didn't move fast enough because it wasn't at my house. But Baxter said these are things that we should be concerned about. I'm going to tell you the truth. Most people are not concerned about it because you don't think it's going to happen to you. You don't believe that this kind of misery, this kind of torture would happen to you. And that's because you have no friends. You have no family. There ain't nobody in this room that is safe from some of these shutoffs that are going on from coast to coast. You got somebody that's calling you. Cousin, aunt, uncle, mama, daddy, child. I need a little help with the bill. So now this is a question of how we're going to live. Are we going to allow these corporate pirates to frame and describe what our lives should be? And now, it's just unbridled fascism. Unbridled fascism. They tell me Comey is on TV today, and he's telling it all. You know, somebody threatened me, and somebody made me lie about something, and somebody made me cheat over here. And all of us are thinking the same thing. It doesn't matter. Because they're going to keep Trump. Doesn't matter about these different governors that we can't stand because they were, quote, quote, elected through democracy. And so we have to keep them. And that's the mindset. That's the description that they got us living with. We've already heard that if your water is not traveling through the pipes, there's algae and mold and other kind of conditions that's set up. And we know that. But we still say, well, this is a question of fear, my brothers and sisters. We're not afraid enough. We haven't suffered enough. The very first time, my kid is 31 years old. You mess with Navarre, you mess with me. And the first time somebody says to Navarre, I'm going to threaten your life, that'll be the last time that they get a chance to say that. My preacher, I pastored for years, tried to get me off the fence on this question of nonviolence. I generally go along with it. But I'm on the fence. And see, I can go either way. You know what I mean? But here's the issue. Because I love this boy so much, anything that threatens him threatens me. And of course, I'm going to go first because I don't want anything to happen to him. Then it came to me clearly. Marian and Jim brought this up years and years ago. I can't save Navarre unless I save all the kids. I can't save this one unless I save all the children. And that's the problem that we suffer. We're not feeling community. We're not feeling unity. Somebody says I can't get in the struggle because there are white people in it. Somebody says I can't get in the struggle because there's black people in it. Somebody says I can't get in the struggle struggle because there's gay people in it. Somebody says I can't get in the struggle because it's a Muslim in it. Somebody says I can't get in the struggle because it's somebody tall, or somebody short, or somebody fat, or somebody who doesn't speak the same language. Yeah. Everybody drink water, though. Yes. Everybody drink water. See, and I maintain that this is a battle of class. Once we got here and the exodus started, all those folks left down south, some went to the east coast, and Harlem and different style. Some went to the west coast, Oakland, Sacramento, and those other places, but a bunch of you all came up the Middle Passage. Chicago, Cincinnati, Detroit, Cleveland, Saginaw, Flint. Factories working all over the place. When I was working at General Motors, they paid me $80,000 a year to be a test driver, and that was not with overtime. Big money involved. What was the problem? What was the problem? Well, we had a Dodge Max. We had a Chevrolet here in Axel. We had a Max Stamping. We had a Hoover Avenue Foundry. We had a Lynch Road Assembly. Ford Glass Plant. All of that. And then we had something called the Rouge. At its time, at its height, the Rouge factory had more than 100,000 workers in 5 or 6 different plants in Dearborn. And they were able to manufacture however many cars they were able to manufacture, 100,000. My kid works out at Ford Rouge now, big time. Union man put money on my pillow every Friday. You know what I mean? This kind of stuff. And there's fewer than 9,000 workers there. 100,000, 9,000. 100,000, 9,000. And this 9,000 can make 5 to 6 times as many cars as this one. Figures like that means why do you need education? We don't have to educate you. We close those schools. You're not going to be any good to work in anybody. Close those schools. Why do you need health care? You don't have to worry about this health care issue because we can't keep you alive. You don't need those things because it's not important. You can't work on them. You don't need health care. You don't need housing. You don't need transportation. You don't need safety in your neighborhood. You call the police. You're scared if they come. You're scared if they don't come. That's how they got us now. Afraid all the time. We worried about ISIS someplace else. We got ISIS right here. It's called water department. At its height, Detroit had 1.8, 1.9 million people, and we needed all of this stuff to keep Detroiters happy. You know, we had to have buses, and we needed houses, and we needed a school on every corner. We needed all those things. Now we're down to less than 700,000. 1 million people have left my beloved city. 1 million. They went someplace else. Why? Because the Dodge main closed for changeover used to take months. Then Dodge main closed for turnover, and then it took weeks. And then Dodge main closed for turnover, and it took days. And then Dodge main closed for turnover and building new cars, and it just took hours. And every time it closed, fewer and fewer workers were called back. And now what we have is you. You troublemakers that insist that a quality of life is important. I'm telling you right now, you ain't no good. When you go home, it's a wonder that they'll let you go home and don't run you over. I don't know why the Pope is still alive. The Pope is a rock star and the man is off the hook. The Pope says you all are doing wrong and you know it. You got this immigrant stuff and you're acting ugly and it's wrong and you know it. You're turning people's water off, including that president you got, and you know it's wrong. Stand up and be courageous. I'm going to help you. What? What? The Pope is a rock star talking that kind of stuff. I'm surprised nobody threw a rock at me. Because he's so out front. What we have, ladies and gentlemen, is a corporate takeover of untold dimensions. This is not an event about water. They just talk about water. That's just the entree. This is an opportunity to convince you that taking water away, shutting water off is an acceptable practice if you can't pay for it. That's where we're going. That's right. And that's what keeps coming up. Miss Taylor, Maureen, this is what we do. They can't pay for it. It's accepted across the country. There's a lot of things used to be accepted across the country. Women didn't used to be able to vote. Blacks couldn't read. You know, Hispanics couldn't own property. All kind of rules and whatnot. So the answer to this question is not just about water. We just stopping there because water is so fundamental. And we have people saying, you don't have to have it, you can't pay for it. Even at the hotel, where a lot of you were staying in our state. The guy that used to be the front man there asked me when we were here 2 years ago, what is this event about? And I told him. He looked, he said, well, you know, if you can't pay for water, you shouldn't have it. I waited till we left the hotel. And Rowe, I waited, wrote a couple of letters. He don't work there no more. We say those kinds of hateful things. We're being cocooned, not just in Detroit, but we're being cocooned in Highland Park, and cocooned in Hamtramck, and cocooned in Baltimore, and in North Carolina, and in Chicago, and in Cincinnati, and every other place where you live, because they are trying to redefine what your life should be. When my kid went to school, my mom was still alive. It's material to think about. And she reminded him, 5 years old, he all the same. She says, listen, everything you need to know about how you should live, I already taught you. And that is how to hold hands, how to say thank you, and may I, and please, share. More fun to play with your friends than play by yourself. And when your friends fall and hurt their knee, put a little spit on your hand and rub it on the knee, and it's better. That's what he did. And that's what he still does today. That's what we have to do. Put a little spit on our hands and wipe these little sore spots that they put on this American working class, get ourselves healed up, and we rise to the occasion when nobody defines what the standard of living is. I want to live in a community where the Jewish temple is here, the Muslim temple is there, the Catholic church is ringing bells off, and the Baptists are up the street doing watermelon. That's how I want to live. I've seen this. I saw this when I went on a retreat where they had all these different religions. It was bells and all kinds of things going on. And everybody lived well. No cars up in Blue Lake Mountain were working. Is it ready? Okay, praise the Lord. Brother Leo, can you hear me? Sounds like he said yes. All right, we're almost ready. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a loud round of applause for United Nations Representative Special Rapporteur Leo Heller on water and sanitation. All right, Leo, you're on.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Leo.
Yeah, warm hello from Brazil. Yeah, I'm very happy to join you today. Not very happy with the situation in Detroit that Maureen told me about problem meeting again. And I would like to express my solidarity with you and remain at your disposal for any support if you can be useful from us, the special rapporteurs on the human rights. As you know, we have been working with the situation of Detroit in different ways, and also the situation of Flint. but I understand that today Detroit is the main issue. We issued an urgent appeal in 24 June of 2014, saying that we are concerned about the disconnections, and we knew that around 50% of the residential water accounts had overdue bills, the price was high, there were no social tariffs in place in Detroit, only the flat rate that is applied regardless of the economic status or difficulties of the family. And we knew that a disconnection plan was in place to disconnect around 1,500 to 3,000 customers. And this revealed a pattern of discrimination because of the poverty, and most of the people disconnected as an Afro-American descendant. Then, in 8th of December of 2014, we sent an allegation letter. The first one was signed by the Special Rapporteur of Water Sanitation, Housing, Extreme Poverty. The second on Water Sanitation and Housing, it was about arrests and against a group of peaceful protesters regarding disconnections. And finally, in January 2015, an urgent appeal sent again to the government, commenting about disconnection, 31,000 accounts since February 2014, about social tariffs, etc., etc. We received a response, 2 responses from the USA government, not very satisfactory, talking about plans of payments, about financial aid, and about funding allocation to the heat and warmth fund. Both the questions you raised were not adequately answered. So this was the situation. The same with Flint. We sent 2 allegations letters, and there were a better response, but as we know, not the remediation of the problem was not satisfactory. So this was what we have done since the start of the problem, and of course we are trying to engage with you. We had a couple of meetings and participation on gatherings, and what I would say is that we are at your disposal to continue in supporting you, and I think you could discuss in this meeting the best way we can help. There are different ways. One can be try to address the press through press releases in order to raise the problem, put the problem on the media. And of course, different letters to the government, the federal government can be done, but considering the current situation of the USA, I don't believe it to be very effective, but in a way, address the problem. But we are open to receive your suggestions on other different ways to address the problem and try to support you and to avoid that new disconnections can play. So this is my message. We have a strong solidarity with the problem, and we are very open and willing to support you through the ways you feel is the best way. Of course, you that are in the US, you feel the political environment, know better than us the best way to support you. We don't have too much feelings about the sensitivity of the governments and press, etc., etc. I know that each month of Trump is the main issue of the news today, and probably other questions do not receive a lot of attention. But as I said, you know better than us best way to address the problem. So maybe after the meeting, after the gathering, I can have a meeting with Maureen and other of you in order to discuss how the best way. So thank you and have a good gathering this evening.
Before Leo, don't leave yet. Can you give us a quick update on what are your reflections in terms of what happened since 2010, 2014, and 2015? What have you been seeing in terms of access to water across the world? How is the fight looking?
Yeah, it's not an easy question to respond because the picture is very mixed. I so far had undertook 5-country mission. I went to 5 countries to assess the situation. Poor countries and not very poor countries, and my feeling is that we have a lot to progress in order to have a better situations regarding the human rights, water, and sanitation. And when we look at the statistics, situation is the same. So I would say that there is usually a very strong pattern of discrimination when we compare groups of populations. So if poorest or poor, less the chance to have access to water and sanitation services. When we compare urban and rural areas usually very worse covered. When we compare different ethnic groups or religious groups, the pattern of discrimination is also there. And there are different problems regarding access to water and sanitation. The problems of disconnections, problems of high tariffs, problems of water quality, bad sanitation solutions, individual solutions without an adequate support from the state, managed, and yes, I'm not very optimistic on the situation around the world, although we know that there are progresses if we compare, for instance, start of the Millennium Development Goals period in 2000 compared to this year, we can see clearly some progresses. But if we look at an ideal situation, distance is very big.
All right, the special rapporteur's job, and in this case, Dr. Helen, his job is to go around the world and assess water access, water purification, water conservation, those kinds of issues, and make recommendations in terms of how we can improve situations. And it's a dismal report when someone with Dr. Heller's expertise says that the situation is not good. And you know, we don't have a choice. The good Lord made the water, the air, the trees, and the dirt, and probably not making no more. We have to find a way to make this work and whatnot. So I'm just so grateful, Dr. Heller, even though you know I have suggested several times that you need to come to Detroit so I can show you some dance moves. So maybe next time when we do this, we'll be able to get you to Detroit so we can see you in person, Dr. Heller.
So Dr. Heller, and
One more question, go
I hate
ahead.
to put Gloria on the spot, but recently we understand you were in Mexico, is that right? And you have been working also with the communities there about water rights issues. And so can you
water rights issues that you were familiar with?
Yes. Yeah, one of the tasks of the special rapporteur is to go to the countries. We usually go to 2 countries per year to a mission in order to assess the situation. And this is not the only one activity we have. We also produce thematic reports, we do allegation letters, etc., etc. My last mission was in Mexico. 2 weeks ago, I went back from Mexico. And what I can say is that the situation is not good there. I was very impressed about how Mexico has good infrastructure. If you go to any city in Mexico, you see water pipes and sewage and wastewater treatment plants. But in many cases, this infrastructure is not working. There are several wastewater treatment plants not operating at all. And there are a lot of issues regarding drinking water quality, disconnections, not very good tariff schemes. So a lot of issues to be addressed there by the government. And yeah, this is the general conclusion of the mission. And also there is a pattern of discrimination against rural populations, indigenous populations, homeless, etc., etc. So the same pattern that I used to see in other countries, I saw strongly in Mexico. The poor states have less access regarding the health state. I went, for instance, to Chiapas, that is the poorest state in Mexico, at the south, and the situation there is not very good. There is a problem, for instance, of informal neighborhood in the capital state, not covered at all, but the municipal service. So these are important issues in Mexico. I'm just finishing my report. I will send to the government next week. And there are a lot of recommendations in the report. And I need to say, I'm strongly convinced that the government has the main role in ensuring the adequate access to water and sanitation. Without the government, we will not move on that. And what I'm saying to Mexico is that the government needs to improve different issues related to water and sanitation there.
Very good. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a few minutes for questions. Who has a question, Leo or the panel? Anybody have a question? Right here, sir, right in front.
For Leo,
Hello?
my question is, there's been a struggle to bring water as a human right to a larger body, including the UN Declaration of Human Rights. How has that progressed?
All right, and before you answer, you had a question. Let's get a couple of questions out. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask if
Wait till the microphone gets there.
Sorry, I lost some part of your question. Could you repeat, please?
I will. He wanted to know, where is the struggle to have water declared as a human right? And maybe comment on that, and then we're going to ask several people to put several questions out. But that was the first one. And
I was wanting to know, is cholera a waterborne disease? And if it is that what's happening in Yemeni right now?
Dr. Heller, is cholera a waterborne disease? And if it is that something that's going on in Yemeni right now? Hold on before you answer. We have some more statements.
A question from First Nations in Canada. There is no clean drinking water on our reservations, and there is no, and the sewage is coming from the cities. and our children have all kinds of diseases, and they passed a law called the Jordan's Principle, because of we don't receive the same services that other human beings receive. And we are trying to make water a human right as well, but we need human rights ourselves.
Hold on, Dr. Heller, and put one, two, and then Rick. I'm on it. Right.
Okay, this is really a straightforward question. I would like to know if Dr. Heller sees this as a move by the capitalist imperialist world to dominate one of our main resources that will keep us alive and thus destroy us.
Okay, conversation, and one, two, and then we have one final question over there.
Last one, I'm on it.
All right, hold on.
Dr. Heller, thank you for your work. As you travel around the world and look at the very dire conditions with respect to the violation of human rights to water, are you encouraged, sir, by what you see coming up from the grassroots in terms of resistance?
All right, hold on, Dr. Heller. There's only 36 more. No. One more hand raised. Dr. Heller, hold on a second. All right, final question, then we're going to wrap it up. Hold on.
Thank you. Dr. Helder, thank you so much for being here with us. Please help us understand how we can get your message out through social media. You talked about press releases, but social media is where it's at here in America. So I think we could get your message out. Would you be willing to issue a statement or help us with that?
Alrighty, Dr. Heller, there have been several questions directed to you. You have about 8 minutes to answer all 26 of them. So, Dr. Heller, you're on. Go.
Okay. No, thank you for this very interesting and relevant questions. Yeah, I will start with the social media. I think we can, of course, explore that and can be an efficient way to raise the question and to publicize our position on the situation. Right? Regarding human rights in laws and in practice, I think that we progressed a lot with the resolutions of the General Assembly, the Human Rights Council. Several constitutions are now including human rights in water sanitation in several countries. In others, the secondary legislation are recognized the rights. So I think there are good progresses. If we look at the new SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals for water and sanitation, they are very related to the principles and of the human rights. So I think we progressed well in this aspect. So the other step is how to implement, how to ensure that in practice. But yeah, this is a process. This is not from the night to the day. And there are some progresses, of course, in these aspects. Slow, not so fast as the legislation. But I think that the legislation gives us a ground to go to the courts and to pressure the governments, etc. About cholera in Yemen, I understood. Yes, cholera definitely is a water-based disease. We are just studying or researching the situation in Yemen, and I'm intending to do something about that. But we need to have more reliable data on that. Yemen, as you know, is facing a very difficult social and political situation, and this is another labor problem in the country. But we are intending, of course, to do something together with the Rapporteur and on. About Canada, we sent an allegation letter to the government about the First Nations, water sanitation stations. I need to check if we received a response for this current government, saying that they are trying to I need to confirm that, but I remember that the government said that they are freezing the budget for the first committee. They recognize that there are problems there, but I'm available also to follow up the situation of the First Nations. And yes, this is not an easy question about the capitalism, but yes, what I believe is that the capitalism is not so genius, is not so closed. There are some spaces, even in the capitalist society, try to get in some countries. And I think it's our goal, from the special procedures, but especially the civil society, the grassroots organizations, always to pressure, always to show to the governments that it's not fair to violate their human rights. It's very serious, very grave when you have violations of the human rights. And in my opinion, we need to use more this expression, violation of the human rights. What is taking place in Detroit is a violation. What is taking place in Flint is a violation of the human rights. The human rights requires a progressive realization of the right. And when there is a retrogression of the rights, this connection is clear. The progression, we need to raise our voices in order to pressure governments in order to solve them.